These 4 tips are going to help you become fluent in English. They will help you practice your English and also improve your fluency while speaking. Not only just English speaking, but fluency while having conversation. The art of making good conversation. Hello everybody, how are you all? Hope you're doing great. So welcome back to another session of learning English with me and improving your fluency. Now, the end goal of learning English is to speak it fluently whenever it is required to speak in a normal day-to-day situation, isn't it? So today in this lesson, I'm going to give you 4 tips to speak English fluently. So yes, today's video is going to be focused on speaking English fluently. 4 tips that you can inculcate in your daily life, in your learning routine, make it a habit. These 4 tips are going to help you speak English fluently. So are you all ready for this? I'm Shivangi Gupta, your CELTA certified English language tutor and communication coach, certified by the University of Cambridge, the UK. Before beginning, please subscribe the channel so that you do not forget to check out any lesson that I post for you only for you on the channel. Please like the video and share it with your friends too. Now coming back to today's lesson, the 4 tips that I have. These 4 tips are something that is easy to follow and the impact is really high. So they have deep impact with great results, something that you can easily follow. So let's begin with all the 4 tips to speak English fluently whenever you want to. Tip number 1. Tip number 1 is to immerse yourself in English. Immersion, that is very important. You have to immerse yourself in English. Now, what is immersion? Immersion is basically a technique. Immersion is something that you have to include in your day-to-day routine. It is nothing but simply surrounding yourself with English. Surrounding yourself with English. Immersion is basically when you immerse yourself in English. Basically, I've told you about it, that this is a term which comes from swimming and diving. So immersion is when you're surrounded with water, inside the water. You're able to breathe. You're able to come up to the surface whenever you want to. So that is what is. You have to immerse yourself in English. You have to create a balance where you are immersing yourself in English. You're surrounded more and more by English so that you can interact with English in a natural way. When you do that, you gain confidence to speak in English. When you do that, you subconsciously pick up fluent English from your environment that reflects in your speaking. So basically, you have to immerse yourself in English. That is, you have to create that English learning environment, English speaking environment, and an environment that resembles that of a native English speaker. Because that is what is immersion. They are naturally immersed in the language. For example, your native language, whatever is your native language, whatever is your first language, you have been immersed into this language since your birth. That's why you're so fluent in it. That's why you don't take any time to speak it. You don't take any time to think about it. You're so natural at it. Now you have to create a similar environment for yourself, maybe through books, through materials, through listening material. You have to create an environment for yourself. I'm not saying do this 24/7. No. You do not have to do it for the whole day. Obviously, you cannot do that. Obviously, you cannot avoid speaking your native language because there are going to be times in the day when you are required to speak in your native language. But the thing is that you have to create certain time periods in your day where you are completely immersed in English. You're completely immersed in English. It can be 1 hour, it can be half an hour. If you can do it for the whole day, that's great. Bravo. That's absolutely great. If you're able to achieve that, commendable. The thing is that you have to immerse yourself in English. The more you immerse, the more English becomes natural to you. And when you are natural at something, it becomes effortless. That is why you'll be able to speak it fluently whenever you want to. Because immersion is equals to language acquisition. What is acquisition? That is acquiring it naturally from your environment. Not trying to put so many efforts into it, not trying to put so many efforts and then thinking that I'm not getting any results. This kind of thought process hinders your fluency. So what you have to do is you have to immerse yourself so that you can naturally acquire that fluency from your surroundings, from your environment. Number 2. Tip number 2 is to binge watch some English shows. Now you have to binge watch some English shows. What is binge watching? Binge watching is basically when you watch 1 episode, 2 episodes, 3 episodes continuously. Weekends are good time periods when you can binge watch something. Shows, TV series. I've given you recommendations related to different TV series already. TV series on Netflix. So you can go binge watch some good shows on Netflix. There are so many shows out there. You already have 2 to 3 recommendation videos. The link is there in the description box below from where you can find those particular lessons. And you can binge watch it. When you binge watch, what you're doing is you are engaging different senses. You are engaging different senses altogether. For example, you're watching, you're listening, and then you're also reading if you're switching on the subtitles. You're able to judge what's going on, the actions, the expressions, the body language. So you have so many senses which are already there involved in particular thing, the English language that you're acquiring, and it's much more impactful because you're constantly listening to good English. You're constantly listening to good English. I know watching a particular TV series, watching 1 episode per day is good, it's great. But when you do it for a longer period of time, for example, you're binge watching it on weekends, it helps you a lot because you're exposed to it for longer period of time. Because you're exposed to it for longer period of time, the impact is going to be really high. What you can do is later on in the weekdays, you can basically work on whatever you have learned through those particular episodes. For example, new vocabulary, you can explore that. Some idioms you've learned, you can explore that. Some expressions you've learned, you can explore that. Maybe you can do your speaking practice. But if you do this binge watching on weekends, it'll help you a lot. And it'll also create a base for you for the weekdays to come. Whatever practice you're doing, it'll also act as a base to that particular practice and it'll add to it. So that's why I say binge watch TV shows, Netflix shows on weekends so that you can listen to really good English, some really good content and absorb it. Absorb it so that your subconscious mind gets conditioned to become fluent in English. Tip number 3. So the tip number 3 is to think in English. Yes, practice thinking in English. If you have mastered the art of thinking in English, things become easier for you and you're able to speak fluently. Because when this thought process becomes easy, speaking automatically becomes easy. You're able to think easily in English. That means you're able to construct those sentences, you're able to use the vocab in the correct manner. That is in an effortless manner, just like your native language, that you don't have to put so much efforts and it's spontaneous. The process of speaking in your native language, that's spontaneous, isn't it? And we have to achieve the same thing while speaking English to bring that spontaneity, because if you're missing that spontaneity, what happens is you're not able to speak fluently because you have to stop so much to think about what you want to say next, to think about the content, what you were saying, to jot down your thoughts inside your mind, obviously. And then sometimes you end up translating things in your head. It happens, isn't it? How to stop that? And to stop that, the only solution is to think in English. Now, what is exactly thinking in English? That is, whenever you want to speak in English, your brain works as if it's there, the content is there in English. You're able to form sentences easily. It's spontaneous. That is the thinking in English process. And for that, you have to practice thinking in English. If you want to master this art of thinking in English, practice thinking in English, deliberate practice. You have to do deliberate practice. And for that, I've made videos for you on different techniques on how to think in English. So to go check them out, how to think in English. Take up those techniques. Practice thinking in English. That is the key, that you have to practice thinking in English if you want to speak English fluently. Now, the tip number 4, the last tip for today's lesson is talk to yourself. Yes, talking to yourself. Now, talking to yourself, it has dual benefits. Obviously, you're doing your speaking practice. It's obvious. But do you know, when you talk to yourself, you also gain conversational confidence. You gain confidence to have conversation with other people. Because what are you exactly doing? When you're talking to yourself, you're talking about random things. And you often do it in your mind. What you have to do is you have to speak it out loud. Talk to yourself out loud. Maybe take up a topic and start talking to yourself on that particular topic. It can be the current news, what is going on in the world. Maybe something that has happened at your workplace, something that has happened in the neighborhood. It can be anything, any topic. Start talking to yourself on that particular topic. Start doing this, and this is going to give you great speaking practice. Now, this speaking practice is important because this particular activity is easy to follow. This particular technique is easiest technique I suggest to practice English when you don't have a partner, and to gain that confidence, to gain that fluency, because practice develops fluency. Practice is very important, speaking practice. And whatever you're learning throughout the day, you're able to implement somewhere. That is also important, to implement in your speaking. And this particular technique gives you opportunity to do that, to practice speaking, to talk to yourself is like just not speaking, but you're kind of having a conversation with yourself. And that is why you'll also gain, subconsciously you will gain confidence to have better conversations. No one will tell you this, that talk to yourself is just not about speaking, but it's also about making great conversations. Believe me, it is. Because somehow you're habitual of doing it with yourself. And when you have to speak to somebody on the same topic, maybe you were talking to yourself, thinking about this particular topic, and that particular topic comes up next day in your office, in your college, maybe in a particular lunch discussion and something like that, you'll be able to have a good conversation with your colleagues, with your friends. And that is how you will develop your speaking skills. Plus, obviously, you're practicing English speaking, so definitely you're going to gain fluency, because if you won't practice speaking, how are you going to gain fluency that you're looking for? So in order to improve those speaking skills, you have to work on your speaking skills. And this technique helps you to work on your speaking skills. So that is why I suggest talk to yourself whenever you have time, for 5 minutes, 10 minutes in a day. Sit in solitude, take up a corner in your house and talk to yourself. Sit there, talk to yourself. That is the thing. That is the key to speak English fluently. So these are the 4 tips to speak English fluently. These 4 tips are going to help you become fluent in English. They will help you practice your English and also improve your fluency while speaking. Not only just English speaking, but fluency while having conversation. The art of making good conversation is one of the particular aspect of English speaking, and you'll be covering both fluent English speaking and also having conversation with somebody, to make a conversation with somebody. So you will be covered in both the ways. These 4 tips are going to help you speak English fluently. So take these 4 tips and see the difference for yourself. So that's it. That is it. That was the lesson for today. I hope this helps you a lot. Now I'm going to meet you next time with a new lesson. Till then, everybody, take care and bye.